Hi guys, it's Tara. Welcome back to Crafting with Curly Cues and day 5 of my Handmade Holiday series. Today I'm going to be using some adorable stamps from the Greeting Farm and some perfect pearls to create a faux metallic finish. So I started by using this Doris embossing folder on some paper. And there is that adorable stamp set I'm going to use. That Doris embossing folder completely reminded me of like a peppermint patty. So that was kind of my thought going into this card. This is some Nina 110-pound solar white cardstock, and I did cut it down using a Lawn Fawn Stitch rectangle die to the sides of the front of an A2 card, and then I used a Lawn Fawn Stitch scallop border die to go ahead and cut the bottom off in that cute little border. And I did the same with that piece of Schoolhouse Red Simon Says stamped cardstock over there. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking some distress ink. I believe this is Fired Brick, and I am going over the top of this embossing. My original hope for this was that I could do it light enough that only the raised stripes would turn red and the background would stay white, and you'd get like this really cool peppermint stick look. But it turns out this embossing folder was not quite deep enough, and I wasn't able to avoid getting the red on the background. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going over and over those raised areas to make the raised areas a darker red than the rest of it. So I'm okay with the whole piece being red. I just want some contrast between the raised areas and the background, and so the way that I'm getting that is by making those raised areas a darker red, which is easy to do because that's the part that the sponge wants to hit the most when I'm distressing here. And then I just went around the edges and used that distress ink so that I didn't have any white edges showing. So now I'm coming back in with another red. I believe this is Barn Door, so I'm just kind of trying to accentuate the red even more on there by contrasting it with a different color than the rest of the background. So I really like the way it turned out. I thought it was super fun, but I couldn't leave well enough alone, and I've been kind of obsessed with my perfect pearls lately. If you watched my last video, you saw that I did a whole like watercolor background with perfect pearls. So here I'm using a technique that I got from Jennifer McGuire, and it basically involves taking your perfect pearls and putting it on top of a distress inked background and then kind of burnishing it in with a paper towel, and it leaves this really cool metallic finish. So it looks like you've used like a metallic cardstock when really you've kind of created it yourself. So once I brush that perfect pearls on there, I am taking the paper towel and I'm just kind of rubbing the excess off with a nice light rub. And then what that's doing is not only getting rid of the excess, but it's kind of setting that perfect pearls on the paper there so that it's just nice and set. So then I did off camera spritz it just with some really, really light water from really far away just to extra set that perfect pearls. So now with my Tuxedo Memento Black ink, I'm going to take this adorable polar bear drinking a coffee image from that stamp set. I'm going to stamp it on a scrap of Nina 110-pound solar white, and I'm going to do some Copic coloring. I really, really, really like this image. I think this is so sweet. This is my first Greeting Farm set, and I think it's adorable. And I know the Greeting Farm has all the little Anya girls, and I wanted one of those, but this set was just, it was calling to me and I had to get it. So I am coloring this little polar bear with my warm grays. I want him to mostly be white because he is a polar bear, but I got to put some shadows on him so that he has some dimension. So what I'm doing is just coming in with my W1 and I'm going in the spots where there would be some shading. I'm not doing anything real fancy. I'm kind of just doing a little bit darker on the left side, so maybe as though my light source is coming in from the right, I guess. I'm not really good at the technical light source thing. I just kind of pick a side and go with it. So today I picked the left side. So I put a little bit of R20 on his cheeks and in his ears there, and now I'm coming in with my W3 and I'm deepening up some of those shadows just to give him a little bit more dimension. And then I am going to come back in with my W1 and just blend those shadows back out a little bit. So sorry if you can hear my phone there. I completely forgot to turn it off before I did my voice recording. Fortunately, it is only going to do some texts, and I probably won't get a call because I don't really get any phone calls. I hate talking on the phone. I don't know about you guys. I talk on the phone for my job, and I don't want to talk on the phone at home. So anyway, that's just a little personal tidbit about me there. So now I'm coming in with my colorless blender, and I am just rubbing out, blending in all that shadowing that I did, so that he essentially has a nice white look and there's a seamless blend between the shadows and his white polar bear fur. I did go over and over his cheeks quite a bit because there wasn't any other color on top of his cheeks, so the colorless blender was all I really had to make sure that that R20 was blended out and not just two perfect little clown circles on his cheeks. So I did kind of spend a little bit of time going over that so that it would blend out nicely. So once Mr. Polar Bear is colored, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to work on his little scarf and his cup. I did go pretty traditional Christmas with this, and I went with some greens and some reds. So starting with the scarf, I came in with just a couple of basic green tones. And first I went in with my lightest green, and I just did a wash over the entire scarf here. So, you can see that I'm just going to put that color over the whole thing, saturate all the paper, and get it nice and wet so that when I come in with my darker tones, it will start to blend a little bit easier than it would if it wasn't wet. I'm going to apologize to you guys. My brain is kind of all over the place right now. We leave for Disney World in 10 days, and I am trying to, like, I'm constantly, all the time, I'm like packing in my brain right now because I'm in that mode where it's just close enough that I want to make sure I don't forget anything, but it's not quite close enough to have everything like in the suitcase and ready to go. So I'm just kind of on this, like, I don't know, my brain keeps fuzzing out and I'm like narrating the video, and then all of a sudden my head's like, oh, sunscreen, and I have to remember to do that. So I apologize if I seem a little distracted. I am, I'll be honest, I've got vacation-itis here. So anyway, I used 3 different tones of green for his scarf, just to give it lots of fun dimension. I really like these greens. I think they're really like true green, which is a fun Christmas time green, and I am going to embellish that scarf a little bit later with my white gel pen. So it's fun to take some of the images and kind of add your own patterns and, you know, just kind of make them a little bit more complex all on your own. I think that's super fun. So now I'm going to color his little tiny coffee cup. I'm going to color that red, and so I'm going to come in with just a couple shades of red. It's a pretty small little image anyway, and then he's got his little bear paws on it, so it's kind of tricky to get into all those little cracks, but I did try to put a little bit of shading. I don't know how effective it was, but I did want that cup to look round, so I did come in with my R29 first, and then I'm going to come in with that R89, which is a really nice deep dark red, and put the little bit of shadows around his little hands there, where it would be shadowed, and then come back in to give it that kind of rounded look. And then I just came in with a light brown color, and I colored in that cup because I figured that way it can be either cocoa or coffee or tea. It's all a nice brown color, and Mr. Polar Bear can enjoy his warm winter beverage at his leisure there. I didn't do any shading in there because it's just too small. I didn't see the point. So now I'm just going to color his little nose in, and I'm using some of my warm grays again, and I'm just coming in and I'm doing a nice and dark little nose, and I just left a little bit of a highlight right there on the tip so that he's got a little bit of a shine. And Mr. Polar Bear is all good and colored here. I love this image. I can't say it enough. He is precious. So then I went ahead and fussy cut him out using my scissors here. I am cutting right up to the line. I don't have the coordinating dies for this set, but I wanted him to be fussy cut right up to the line anyway. So I am just going around all his little hair fluffs there and getting him cut out. And then once he's all cut out, I am going to take my craft knife, and I'm going to cut, and I'm going to take that little spot there where his legs are and get rid of that so that he doesn't have that white space there. So I'm just using my craft knife. I love my glass cutting mat. I know I've said this before, but I just want to reiterate, like, you can get it messy, you can cut on it, like, it's just a great surface to have under almost every single technique that you could possibly do. So it's super handy to have. So now that he's all done, I'm going to take my black soot distress marker, and I am going to line the outside of my image here. When I do this, I always do it from the back side. That way if I slip, I'm going to mark up the back of my image and not ruin the front and have to color him again. Another thing that I do is I wait a little bit and make sure that all the Copic coloring is dry so that that ink doesn't blend into the image. So just a couple tips on what I do there, and then that makes him look nice and cut out perfect. So I do have a craft card base that is A2 top folding, and I am going to start placing some of my pieces. You can see now that I magically have a white scalloped piece. I didn't love the way that the schoolhouse red was looking behind the brighter red metallic background that I had created. So I went ahead and cut a piece of just Nina white cardstock to put back there instead. And I like that a little bit better. And then I used a different size of the stitch scallop border dies from Lawn Fawn to create a little bit of contrast and dimension there. So I'm kind of trying to figure out how I'm going to lay things out, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my sentiment. So the stamp set comes with this cute little saying. This is "Let's Be Merry." It's got some really fun fonts. I really like the plain font with the scripty font. So I'm going to create a little banner to put my sentiment up in the corner here. And I'm going to go ahead and do some two-tone stamping for my sentiment. So first I'm going to take some Post-it tape and I'm going to mask off the word Merry. And then I'm going to come in with my Versamark, or excuse me, my VersaFine ink. And this is a black pigment ink, and I'm going to ink up the "Let's Be," and then I'm going to remove my masks. It's very important to remember to remove those. I have messed that up before. And then I'm just going to stamp that on my cardstock here, and I'm kind of just stamping. I'm going to trim this out later, so I'm just making sure I have enough room. Now this VersaFine ink is a pigment ink, so it stays nice and wet for a while, so I'm going to come back in with some Stampendous Kaleidoscope embossing powder, and this is a clear embossing powder that's got some really fun iridescent sparkles in it, and I'm going to put that on top of the "Let's Be," and then I'm going to go ahead and heat set that with my heat tool. So that's going to create a nice shiny sparkly finish on this part of the sentiment. And the reason that I did that is because for the other half I'm going to use a sparkly embossing powder, and I kind of wanted them to match. So now I have masked off the "Let's Be." I cleaned my stamp really well so that that VersaFine ink wouldn't stamp again. Masked off the "Let's Be," and then inked up the Merry in some VersaFine ink. And then I get my big old noggin in the way so I can line that up perfectly. And then I did go ahead and emboss that using some of that Zing red glitter embossing powder. So you can see how the whole sentiment is kind of sparkly and shiny there. So then I went ahead and trimmed that up using my paper trimmer, and I'm just going to take my Tim Holtz piercing tool here, and I'm going to mark where I want the holes to be, and I'm going to use that to pierce some holes and then just kind of wiggle it around in there and make them big enough for my lawn trimmings. And I have got some really cute green sparkle lawn trimmings, which is a little bit thicker, so I did have to go back in with that pick and kind of wiggle it around inside those holes a little bit. And apparently I'm not doing any of that on camera, so sorry. I guess my craft pick is camera shy. And I made those holes big enough that this lawn trimmings twine can fit through them. So I'm just coming in from the back side, and I am going to go ahead and stick each end through those little holes that I've created. I did trim off the end because it was fraying a little bit and it was not wanting to go through that hole. So that's what I had to do to get it through there. And then I'm just going to tie a little bow on the front of this banner here. And I have no special bow tying tricks. I just tie a bow like I tie my shoes, and then I pull on it and tweak it and hope that I can get it to go in the right place. I really like this lawn trimmings because it's thicker and it's got some like weight to it, so you can kind of manipulate it and put it where you want it, and then it will stay, as opposed to a lot of them that are just more flimsy and they just won't stay where you put them. So I've got my little bow there, and so now I'm going to come in and I'm going to trim a ribbon end by cutting up the middle and then cutting from the corners to the top of that slit and get a nice little ribbon banner there for my sentiment. And now I'm going to start assembling everything on my card. So I'm going to start by combining the two scalloped pieces at the length that I want them. So I'm going to kind of position them on my card and figure out how much of that white piece I want showing. And then I'm going to take my ATG gun and I'm going to go ahead and get that nice and sticky here. And then I'm going to put the peppermint piece right on top. I keep wanting to call it Twisted Peppermint. I love Bath and Body Works candles, and that's my absolute favorite wintertime scent is the Twisted Peppermint. It's like peppermint and vanilla, and it's simply divine. And that's what this background is reminding me of, especially now that I put the white piece on it. This is my Twisted Peppermint background. I love it. So I trimmed up the extras that didn't quite line up It never does for me. I am notoriously bad at lining things up. And then I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of that full little panel that I've created here. And then I'm just going to take that and I'm going to line it up with the fold on my card and squish that down nice and good there. And then for a little bit of extra bada bing, I'm going to take my corner rounder, and this is my Fiskars 3-in-1 corner rounder. I love it because it's got 3 different sizes, and I'm using the biggest one, and that's the one that I like the most. And I'm going to round both of those bottom corners just to give this card a little bit of extra shape. And now I'm going to put my little elements on there. And I'm just going to pop both of these up, both the banner and the polar bear, up with some Scotch 3M foam tape and just stick them kind of on the card there. And now I'm going to go in with my white gel pen, my Uniball Signo white gel pen, and I am going to add a little bit of detail. I told you I was going to spruce up his scarf. I'm going to put some little polka dots on his little scarf. So first I warm that up on my finger. It gets the ink flowing and gets that little ball rolling there. And then I'm going to add some dots to the ground. So instead of doing shadows underneath him, I decided to do little snowflakes underneath. So then off camera I did add some sparkling clear pretty pink posh sequins with some Christmas red stickles in the middle, and I put some glossy accents on his little nose and his coffee cup. So that is the card for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I am going to put a full list of supplies over on my blog. You can join me on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. And here are some links to days 3 and 4 of my Handmade Holiday series. Thanks guys. Bye.